This is going to be a semi-off-the-cuff video. Semi because if I don't have some of it written down, I won't remember to say it. Yes, I'm reading this part from a script and trying to make it look like I'm not. I've never gotten any kind of formal diagnosis of my mental health, but I feel like I'm probably to the point where a trained professional could just examine my body of work here on YouTube and make some educated guesses. This endless fixation on electric basses and music theory minutia is probably enough on its own. Maybe also my simultaneous ability to hyper-focus for 20 hours straight with no food and scarcely getting up to go to the bathroom in order to produce a video start to finish in a day, while also somehow barely being able to stay on topic for the length of a single sentence. You get the idea, but whatever all of this says about my brain, there's still the practical consideration that this is not my actual job. Yes, I'm making a small amount of money from my videos, but I can earn more in one good day of freelance web development than I have so far in nearly a year of monetizing YouTube videos. In other words, as excited as I get about New Gear Day, I can't just keep buying new basses to make videos about. Well, what am I saying? Of course I can. I maybe just need to slow down. A bit. With your help, I can subsidize this ridiculous habit. Yes, that's your cue to like and subscribe, and be sure to leave a comment. You can also check the description for other ways to support the channel. But enough of the simultaneous self-promotion and flagellation. I do have a topic for this video. At the moment, I own 9 basses. That's honestly more than I need, so I'm going to sell at least a couple of them. Stay tuned for more on that. But I also think I've found a set of basses I'm really happy with, for now. There's no void I'm seeking to fill anymore, so I need you to help me find one. Today I'm going shopping. Well, not really. I mean, I'm not even getting out of this chair, probably for the next 20 hours. I'm looking at Sweetwater's website. I've filtered their list of basses by a few criteria. 4 strings, in stock only, and priced between $300 and $1,000. Sorted by price, highest to lowest. That's it. I'm going to go through this list and let you see the inner workings of my brain. I'm going to tell you why I've consistently rejected certain brands or styles. I'm probably going to complain about headstocks a lot. My goal is to pick 5 basses I find interesting. I'm going to try for ones that are nothing like basses I've owned before, and maybe a few that don't fit my usual aesthetics. In the end, I'll create a poll to let you decide which of those 5 basses I should review next. Well, maybe not next as in like next week or something, because here's my other goal. I'm going to save all the money my YouTube videos earn beginning on January 1st to go towards buying the winning bass. When that happens, I'll buy it and review it here. Okay, let's go shopping. All right, so starting at the top here, I've got the criteria in place, in stock, price range $300 to $1,000, sorting high to low. 4-string basses only. Fretless basses probably will end up in here. I see the first one is a fretless. We'll see how that goes. First couple are Ibanez, and they kind of show, it's an aesthetic that I really just don't care for. I don't know why. I have a weird obsession with the extended horn. It looks weird to me. I don't know why. I also generally am not a big fan of sunburst finishes, at least when it gets really dark around the edges. I don't know what it is. It seems too traditional maybe, but it just looks weird to me. I don't like it. Then of course we get to the headstock. I knew it wouldn't take long to get to headstock. I really find this shape just kind of odd. I don't like it when the tuners are like angled inward. It just seems like they screwed up. I know they didn't, that's intentional, but yeah. The other things about this one that I would rule out just for myself and my own limited abilities, the fact that this fretless is unlined. It does have the fret markers on the top edge, so that might be enough for me to be able to play it, but this is not an aesthetic that I like. And I don't especially want another fretless, so I'm going to rule that one out right away. And then moving on to the next one, this is another Ibanez. I'm not going to go through every single one of these, by the way. So fan frets, that's interesting. I've never played a fan fret bass. I might actually find that I liked it. I've kind of avoided doing that up to this point. This kind of detailing on the front, I really just, I don't know. I like a simpler look. If it's natural grain without a sunburst, that's fine. But this sort of, I'm not even sure what you'd call this, sort of burled top, it just, I don't know. It just seems messy to me. I also find the angled pickups on a fan fret bass look kind of odd, but you know, I could probably come around to that, but this one definitely not. So next up, this is actually a model that I have looked at quite a bit. I'm not sure Sonic Blue would be the color I want, but Fender owns Charvel now. Charvel started in the 70s, kind of ripping off the Fender designs, and they were doing like mods to Fender basses and guitars. And then they started building their own. Of course, now Fender owns it, so they're able to legally use the Fender headstock design. I do really like the look of this bass. So I think since it's coming up here, I'm going to make it one of my picks. I already have a precision bass with PJ pickup configuration. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to put this in the cart, but I may change my mind. Now, the big question here is just which color. So I do really like the red. Of course, that's also not in stock, so it breaks my rule. Of course, Sonic Blue, that's nice. I'm going to go ahead and make this one of my picks, but I might take it back out if I find some more that I like. All right, next up, Fender Player 2. I've had some issues with Fender, even as much as I like them, so I'm not going to even consider Fender for this. Fender Ventera 2, another one, not going to consider it. Okay, now here we go. This is something to check out. Sterling StingRay Ray 34 HH. So it's got double humbuckers. I actually kind of like that wood grain and the sunburst finish because it still is kind of, it's got like a reddish, what do they call it? Blood orange burst. That I'm okay with. I don't particularly care for the clear pickguard look. Even though I get that you want to be able to see the wood grain, I would just say don't put a pickguard on it at all. A clear pickguard is just kind of weird to me. So for that reason, I definitely am not going to pick that. Although there are other colors. Okay. This is the type of wood. I don't like that. It looks diseased, which, I mean, the tree was diseased. That's why it has those burls. But yeah, no, I don't like that look. And then with Daphne Blue, that is nice, but they don't have it. So we're going to skip that one. The Epiphone Grabber. Okay, here we go. I have to talk about this one. This is actually kind of a cool bass. It's weird and not consistent with the kind of aesthetics that I usually like. And again, I've talked before about how I'm not really into Gibson. I would put this one in the cart. I absolutely would, because I've seen some videos that gave it a really positive reviews. It seems like it's probably pretty well made and would be interesting to try out. But I have two specific reasons that I would not even consider this. The first is that the whole gimmick of the original Gibson Grabber was that you could literally grab the pickup and move it to different positions. This does not have a movable pickup, so I don't understand calling it the Grabber, just because it looks like the Grabber otherwise. It's kind of like the new Volkswagen Beetles when they first came out. The shape of the body was part of what made the Beetle what it was, but the real thing was the rear air-cooled engine. And the new Beetle had an engine in the front. It wasn't air-cooled. It kind of defeated the whole function of what made the Beetle what it was. So no, I can't put this in my cart. Oh, the other thing that I don't like about it, I'm going to zoom in here, is I really cannot stand how the pickguard aligns or doesn't align with the body. How it's like wider here, and then it tapers down to almost touching the edge, and then it flares out again. It looks like a mistake. I can't do it. Sire. I'm going to look at this one just so I can talk about Sire a little bit. Sire, obviously, most of their body designs are just straight up Fender knockoffs, which, I like the look, so that's fine. I've talked before about Sire's headstock design. That upper end, it just looks like a mistake. I've chilled out on that. That actually is not the reason why I would not consider another Sire. I've owned two Sires in the past, and both of them had major production issues that I ended up having to return them. The first one, there was a flaw in the output jack, and it shorted out on me in a gig. I was on stage, and it just stopped playing. And I had to stop the song because there was nothing else I could do. And that was it. Even though it was something that could have been fixed and you could replace it, I couldn't tolerate it, so I returned the bass. And then the other Sire I got, tried to give them another chance. The pickups were probably wired wrong, but the amount of noise they produced was just terrible. And again, it could have probably been fixed. I actually tried replacing the pickups, and the cavities for the pickups were too small for stock Fender style replacement pickups. They were Bartolini's, and so it was useless to me in that way. So, I'm not going to route out bigger pickup cavities on a bass just to deal with the fact that it was manufactured wrong. And maybe I could have fixed the wiring. I don't know enough about electronics to really do that. But again, it was like, well, I just bought this thing. It's got this problem. I'm just going to return it. And that was the end of it for me with Sire. So even though like a lot of the other things about their quality control, their necks are really great. They look cool and they feel great to play. They're off limits for me for now. It's just how it is. Another Epiphone Grabber. This one in black. That's nice, but that one's already ruled out. More Sires. No thanks. Okay. ESP. Okay, so this ESP, it's basically a P bass. That's another weird headstock design. I know they can't imitate Fender exactly, although Fender has been licensing their headstock designs now, but I don't know. I just don't like it. Other than that, it's basically a P-bass, so it's fine. ESP, I kind of just, okay, I'll admit it. I hate the whole stencil logo. It just, stupid things like that are enough to make me reject something outright. And aside from the fact that it's basically a P-bass and I already have one, so no, that definitely is not going to be a consideration. More Sires, no thanks. More Fenders, no thanks. This Sire, even though I've already ruled out Sire, I have to look at this one just to talk about. Oh, and it's left-handed too, so I'm not left-handed. Obviously not a consideration. I kind of like the sandblasted look. This whole horn thing, stupid. The fan frets, whatever, that's fine. Headless, no. No. That's just, no thanks. More Fender. Reverend. Okay, we're going to talk about Reverend here. Reverend is a relatively new brand, at least it's new to me. Let's talk about the headstock. This headstock is weird, but it's weird in a way that I kind of like. It reminds me a little bit of what G&L did with taking the basic Fender concept. Of course, Leo Fender himself was one of the founders of G&L, so that gives them a pass. Their headstock design is weird, and actually, I have one right here. So this whole notch, I'm not going to say I like it because I don't, but there's something about it that I'm just kind of willing to tolerate because of other cool things. And that ties in with Reverend kind of more in general. The thing I feel about Reverend is like everything about their designs is kind of weird. It's like intentionally weird in a way that I actually think is kind of cool. I've heard good things about them, and this bass has some things that appeal to me. I like the block inlays, the bound fretboard. That's cool. This body shape is just so bizarre, but I just embrace the weirdness. I like the pickup, nice high mass bridge, telly style control plate. Yeah, so this one is cool. This is actually, it's only here because it's an open box. So it would be above my price range if I were to get the original full price at $10.99. I probably should have made the upper limit $1,100, but they don't have a filter for that. So I do really like this blue. Call it, what do they call it? High Tide blue. It's kind of there's a slight bluish green tint to it. Yeah. Oh, and what else we got here? There's binding on the body. That's cool. Slight little, oh, I remember now I've actually looked at this exact bass already and thought it was worth considering. Yeah, there's a little chip out of the finish, and that is on the front. But you know what? Just gives it character, I guess. I can see it even in this picture right there. But yeah, I'm gonna consider this one. I'll put it in the cart. All right, let's move on. Ventura. Now, I do actually like the Desert Sand, surprisingly, with the gold anodized pickguard, even though I usually hate gold stuff. I would consider that, but I'm not looking at Fender right now. Warwick. Okay. Another thing with just this weird body shape. I'm going to go with this yellow, Honey Violin Transparent. That is a cool color, and that is wood grain that I really like. This upper horn is just so weird, but I almost kind of like it. Now, the more I look at it, the more I tolerate it. Okay. I feel like if I bought this, I would change the position of the tuners. I just don't like how they're angled in. Now, it's easier to access them that way, but it just looks wrong. I would drill new holes and straighten out the tuners. You know, this body shape is normally something that I would just say, no way, right off the bat, but it's growing on me. Okay, that is pretty cool. There's no markers, fret markers on the front. It does have the dots on the side. Yeah, I need that. I know it's a crutch, but what can I say? And this actually comes with a gig bag. It looks like a decent gig bag. That's cool. All right, you know what? I'm going to add that to the cart. Sterling, another Ray 34 in Sunburst. No thanks. Sire, forget about it. There's so many things about this particular Sire that I would just reject, although I do like the color of the surf green. The Charvel, I already looked at the other color of that and have it in the cart. This Jackson. I'm going to be talking about Jackson, not because of this particular headstock, which I don't totally hate, surprisingly enough. Generally don't like, now this is like an Alembic thing initially, I think, in the 70s, where it's got the through body neck and you can see the plies of the wood of the neck straight through. I get what they're doing with that, but this aesthetic is just not me at all. I don't even know what to say about it. Well, you know, the more I look at this particular one, I'm actually kind of starting to like it in a weird way, but no, I can't see me ever playing this bass. So that's out. Ventura Telecaster bass. I would consider, if I get that far in the list, there's a Squire Telecaster bass that I've been looking at. I said earlier I'm ruling out Fender. I am not ruling out Squire. Sadowsky. First of all, I don't really like the modern Sadowsky looks with the no pickguard. So I'm going to come back to Sadowsky when I get to one of those. Let's talk about Schecter for a minute. I used to own a Schecter guitar, a Tempest Custom. It was really awesome. And I also, for a brief time, owned a Schecter bass. It was a Stiletto Studio. It was a really good bass, actually. I liked it quite a bit. But it had another defect where there was a blend pot for the pickups. And if you turned it all the way to one end or the other to solo a pickup, it would short out completely. And that, again, was something that probably could have been fixed, but it was too frustrating to deal with. And I didn't feel like I should have to fix something like that on a brand new instrument. So I returned it. No, Schecter is probably not a consideration for me, although they do have a few instruments that I would maybe buy, but this is not one of them. That headstock, it's not the worst. This body shape is dumb. I don't like that. The wood grain I do like quite a bit, actually. So for that, I would consider this. But in general, I'm most likely not going to really consider Schecter. Another Fender. Now we get to Yamaha. I actually did buy a Yamaha BB435, which is, the step down from this. This is the 734 because it's a 4-string. Yamaha's guitar and bass designs just seem kind of off to me in a weird way. Although I've come around to it a bit. I wouldn't necessarily rule out the broad bass. I would rule out a lot of their other bass designs, but this design I'm okay with. I do think that the pickguard is kind of a weird shape. Let's talk a little bit about active electronics. I will not consider a bass with active electronics unless it has an active passive switch. That was the other thing that I had a problem with the Schecter. It was only active, and the battery cover it was screwed on, so it was not easy to remove. And when you did open the cavity, it was so tight, it was really hard to get the battery out. So changing the battery on that bass, like in a hurry, is just impossible. Yes, you should always bring a backup instrument with you when you go to a gig, whatever. Wait a second. I'm sorry. I have to stop what I'm doing. What the hell is going on with the body on this bass? There's a separate piece of wood that cuts off right there. Why would they do it that way? Okay, let's see if the back is really... Okay, can't tell on the back, but the front... I mean, it's one thing when it's strips that go the full length, but when you've actually got a split perpendicular halfway across, that's so weird. It almost makes me like it, but I kind of hate it. What was I even talking about? Oh, yes. I won't consider a bass with active electronics unless it has an active passive switch. So this one I would consider, but I'm not going to. The same bass in Dark Coffee Sunburst, I do not like that. This Ibanez, we're going to skip that completely. Okay, here we go. Sadowsky MetroExpress. My very first 100-point review video was for the Sadowsky MetroExpress Hybrid. So it was basically the same bass as this, but a 5-string, and it had a PJ pickup configuration instead of JJ. There were so many things about that bass that were really amazingly great, but it had two complete deal breakers for me. One, and this is where I get into my sensory issues. The semi-hemispherical frets felt so horrible on my hand as I was moving it up and down the fretboard. I could not stand the way that neck felt, even though everything else about it was really well made. The other thing that just killed it for me was the cavity on the back. Let's take a look here. It's got this giant cavity that accesses the battery and all the controls. All the wiring and everything is inside this one cavity. The inside of the cavity is fully lined with copper foil. I mean, they did a really good job with that. But this is just a plastic cover, and there's no shielding at all on the cover itself. I was playing this at a rehearsal, and I had my phone in my right front pocket, as I always do, and I got a text. And the radio interference from the phone just came blasting through the amp because the cavity wasn't shielded. I mean, it doesn't matter how much shielding there is on one side of the cavity if your body is just supposed to be the shielding for the other side. You can't have an electronic device in the same pocket where that cavity is. I'm not going to just change my habit of where I keep things in my pockets because this bass has this design flaw. That killed it for me. And so I'm not going to consider this one. Let's move on to page 2. Okay. This is the left-handed version, but I'm going to just bring it up just so you can see it. This is the Schecter bass that I owned. The headstock, I don't like Schecter's headstock design really, and the body shape is a little weird. I actually really liked the way the wood grain looked with this. This is the same finish I had. I think it's honey satin. This was me stepping out of my comfort zone with like a modern bass design. I really liked so much about this bass. It was really well made. It sounded really cool. It was great. Even the gold hardware I didn't mind. And that, again, is something that I normally don't like. But that problem with that blend pot just killed it for me. More Sire. Here's a Sterling Ray 34 again. It's the same whole thing I was talking about before. This one has like everything I hate. The excessive wood stuff. Three-tone sunburst to black at the edges. I don't like that. And the clear pickguard. Just no. More Sires. There's so many Sires. Jeez. Another Ibanez. I'll take a look at this one. Just it's slightly different than what I looked at before. I don't like the headstock. I don't like the shape of the headstock, and I really don't like the Sound Gear logo. It's just dumb. It makes it look cheap to me. This body, on the other hand, I really do like the body design. Even though the shape is kind of the shape that I normally don't like, and it has the sunburst. The wood grain is really cool looking. I think I need to step out of my comfort zone with this one, and I'm going to actually put this in the cart. So I'm going to get rid of the Charvel. It's a P-base. I already have one. This Cosmic Blue Starburst, no thanks. Epiphone Jack Cassidy. Let's talk about this one really quickly. This is a hollow body. It's fretless. I would possibly consider the fretted Jack Cassidy if I didn't already have the Ibanez AGB 200. That fills the niche for me. And the reason why I would pick that any time over this body is just too big. And let's see from the side how, it's thick and just big. It's like, an acoustic guitar sized body. I don't want to electric bass body that big, even, it helps with the sound for that, but it's too big and it only has one pickup. Obviously it's unlined fretless, so that would be a problem for me. I don't mind the shape of the headstock, but the whole Gibson Epiphone treatment of a 2-in-2 headstock on a bass, the tuners just seem too far apart. It just looks goofy to me. I don't know what else to say. It looks goofy. So yeah, no. Thunderbird. If I were to buy an Epiphone, it would probably be a Thunderbird. Thunderbirds are both beloved and notorious for having kind of a potentially muddy sound, but I do think they actually look pretty cool. And it's very different from anything that I've had. The headstock doesn't suffer from that 2-in-2 goofy tuners too far apart look. This is an interesting twist for me that Gibson came up with on a Fender-like headstock, but with this kind of reversed notch at the top. So I really like how that looks. The body shape, this is obviously not a modern design. These have been around since the 60s at least, but it's radically different from anything that I've had. The only thing I would say about it that I don't totally like is it feels like there should be a little bit more down at the bottom here. It's like it got chopped off too close to the volume knob. And a red, I want a red instrument. I don't have one right now, so I'm going to add that to the cart as a consideration. Let's move on. I really was hoping that I wouldn't pick so many at this high end of the price range. I was hoping to find more that are like cheaper that I could hit the numbers sooner. These are all Fender. They're all good. The Mustang in particular, I have some issues with the Mustang. I own a Mustang and I like a lot of things about it, but there's a couple of things that really are starting to bug me, and I'm going to be talking about that in an upcoming video. More Fender. These are all good, but they're out of consideration. Sadowsky, another Ibanez. Oof. This one, no. I'm not considering it, but I just want to say, that body shape. It's just this curve on the horn is weird, and then the way that this goes like this, and then it's down here. The angle, it just feels like this angle should have kind of a through line behind. It looks like a mistake the way that these parts hit the neck there, and then this just point going nowhere. What's going on? It's just kind of a mess. Oh, and it's headless too. Great. Forget that. Another one in this, just different color. Okay, I should have waited because this color is terrible. Ugh. Yeah, wow. I wish I had just gone to this one right away because this embodies almost everything I could possibly hate in the aesthetics of a bass. It's so ugly. I hate it. Okay, acoustic. I'm not doing acoustics right now, so we'll skip those. I do like the natural look on the Sire, but okay, page 3. Oof, that's candy apple red. The ways that they call some of these colors, how is that candy apple red? Well, it's left-handed anyway, and I should have ruled out left-handed. Let's just right-handed only. Is it going to start us all over from the beginning? Yep. Okay, so I'm going to have to skip ahead through. I do like that ocean turquoise blue with the sandblasted look, but I'm not considering Sire. Okay, moving on. More Sadowskis. The modern Sadowsky with the clear... the clear pickguard. Why? Okay, we have to talk about the bongo. I have hated the bongo for years, but I'm actually starting to like it. I'm starting to embrace the weirdness, and Sterling has just come out with these bongos. I would have no doubt about the quality of it. Can I handle how it looks? I like the purple a lot, though, so I'm going to add this to my cart. More Sire, more ESP, no thanks. You know, I do like the color palette that the Player 2 series has. This weird kind of sickly yellow. I like it for some reason. The coral red is pretty sweet. I like that a lot. And this aquatone blue, that's really cool. Guild Starfire. I like this Pelham blue, but I'm not going to consider it for the same reasons I wasn't considering the Jack Cassidy. That dark navy on the Sire, that's a nice color, but no thanks with Sire. Okay, here we're getting into some of the other Yamahas. These are all the oh my God, Yamaha and their product names. TRBX604FM. Yikes. So there's 4 of them in a row here. I'm only going to look at one, trying to decide which color. The matte amber is probably the one that I would go with if I picked any of them. So let's see what I think of this. Well, first of all, I'm generally not into flame tops like that, but I do kind of like it when there's layers and then they've got the contours on the body and you can see the layers through like that. I like that, actually. This body shape has always kind of bugged me, but you see the way that the line continues through. It doesn't quite continue through, but it's not as abrupt as it was an Ibanez I was looking at before that had the weird disconnect between the two sides. I like the offset dots. The only thing about this bass that I'm not sure about is the headstock. I'm going to put this one in the cart. So I think we're at 5 now. No, we're at 6. Oh, shoot. I'm going to have to choose one to eliminate. So we got the Reverend, the Warwick, this Ibanez, the Epiphone Thunderbird, and the Bongo. I'm going to actually eliminate 2 right now, so I have space for another one. I'm going to get rid of this Ibanez just because the burst. No thanks. And the Reverend is only in here because it's an open box. So it really doesn't qualify anyway. I'm going to remove it. I wanted to give Reverend a chance because I like how weird they are. But, you know, there's other weird stuff around. All right, so now we have the Warwick, the Thunderbird, the Bongo, and the Yamaha. Let's keep going. More Sterling, Sire. Ooh, that is a weird... I'm not choosing Sire, but I just want to take a look for a minute at this burst finish. Now, this bass looks like you could only play it at Christmas. Red Burst Sparkle. I kind of like it. Too bad it's on a Sire. Sire's attempts at knocking off Music Man. All of these Sires. So many Sires. Page 4. More Sire. Jackson. Okay. Well, the body is basically... It's a modified P-bass body with a little bit more contouring, you know, in the cutaways here. EMG pickups, that's good. Looks like it's got active electronics with no passive switch, I'm guessing. But we have to talk about the Jackson headstock. I hate the Jackson headstock more than anything else in guitar and bass design. It epitomizes the 80s in the ways of the things that I don't like about the 80s. I was a kid in the 80s. You know, I grew up on MTV. But I was into the new wave stuff. I was not into heavy metal or hair metal especially. And that's what I associate this kind of headstock design with. But it's dumb. I just think it's dumb. I don't know what else to say. It's not my aesthetic. I'm not going to judge it for other people. If you like it, that's cool. It's just not for me. Okay, you can see this is previously viewed. I have actually been on this page already. I'm going to take a look at it just because I love this color, Fiesta Red. This is a StingRay SS4 short scale. And I did a video recently. My most recent video was the Sterling Joe Dart, and it's really great. So I have a positive opinion of Sterling at this point. I'm not sure that the high level of quality control on the Joe Dart carries over to all the Sterlings because I think the price of the Joe Dart is artificially low since they only do it by pre-order and direct order only, you know, no middleman. So like, I don't think the average $500 Sterling is as good as the Joe Dart. The average $700 Sterling is probably as good as the Joe Dart. And this is $650. So, you know, it's probably the same level of quality. I would consider this one because it's short scale and I'm possibly looking for a new short scale. That's the thing I was talking about earlier with the Mustang. Fiesta Red, I love that color. I love the roasted maple neck. Yeah, you know what? This one's going in the cart. This might be one that I would pursue independently of this little poll that I'm doing here. So it's probably going to get removed from the cart for that reason as we keep going. But for now, it's in the cart. The Ibanez AGB 200. I would definitely put that in the cart, but it's already sitting right over there. And then, of course, there's the AFB 200, which is a slightly larger body. You know, it's deeper, and it has the pick guard. And I think it's a completely hollow body instead of semi-hollow body like the AGB 200. Yeah, that's great, but I already feel like the AGB 200 is almost slightly too deep, so I wouldn't want a larger body than that. The Omen, I'm just going to look at really quickly. This gets into, Schecter is kind of more associated with metal. It has that aesthetic, which also is not really my aesthetic. I don't know what to say about this bass. It's just kind of there. It's not in my cart. That's where it is. Sire, Fender, more Fender. Okay, orange. It's ironic that it's orange and it's purple, but it's the Glenn Hughes signature, and purple is his color. I have to say, I do really like the look of this bass. It's classic, but also weird. The pickguard shape is so bizarre. I would consider this, except I've seen some review videos of these basses that were very negative. The neck is apparently super chunky, and there were just production problems, like QC problems. So as much as I like the look of this bass, and I would probably own one if I hadn't, already if I hadn't seen the videos criticizing the quality of them. So I'm going to rule it out. Sorry, Glenn. More Sire, more Fender, another Yamaha with a ridiculously long name. This Ibanez, just more design aesthetic that is, I would just never be holding that bass. I can't imagine wanting something that looked like that. It's just me. I know it's just me. But yeah, well, it's not just me, but it is just me. Now we're to the BB434. This is the 4-string equivalent of the bass that I did have. I like the ice blue. The red is fine. The pickguard, it's a weird shape. But the main reason that I got rid of that bass was that it just didn't sound good. It was very muddy. There was even with the tone turned all the way up, it just sounded muddy. And I usually like the tone rolled off, but I just couldn't get a good sound out of it. I mostly liked it otherwise, but I sold it. This one I don't know, there's something weird about, what is it, a gold burst? Mars Gold Metallic Burst. You'd think I would hate this, but I kind of like it. Not enough to put it in the cart, but enough to at least talk about for a few seconds. More Sires. No, thanks. Again, the flame top, not really too. Okay. I need to brace myself for this one. I despise the Danelectro body shape. It is so ridiculous. The headstock's pretty bad too. And those tiny little tuners, what the heck? They're so goofy. I could see as a joke maybe having this for something, but it's just awful. It's awful. No. More Sires. God, there's so many Sires. This is maybe a good time to talk about guitar companies that are struggling. So, of course, we heard earlier this year that G&L went out of business and their assets were acquired by Fender. We just found out this week that Hofner filed for bankruptcy, and I saw this morning a post by Paul McCartney lamenting the death of Hofner. Obviously, that is kind of sad news for him. I was considering a Hofner. Sweetwater has never carried Hofner, so they obviously are not showing up here. Guitar Center has them. You can still buy them, but they're going to be gone. That's sad, although, I talked in my video about the AGB 200 about why I ended up not choosing a Hofner. I have to admit it's not entirely surprising that they would file for bankruptcy, but it does make me a little sad that a company like that goes out of business while Sire just keeps imitating everybody else and growing. And it feels like about 70% of the basses in this list are from Sire. It's kind of ridiculous. More Sires, another ESP. Yeah, more Sires, another Schecter. Sire. Okay, we got to talk about the Jackson concert bass. Well, I'm going to come back to it when there's one that's a better color, because I don't like that color. Ugh, that Danelectro is even worse. Copper burst with white sides. Ugh, like white wall tires. Yuck. Here's another Danelectro in a style that I don't totally hate, so maybe I should take a look at it. I'll probably hate it once I look more closely. Yeah, it has that same stupid headstock with the tiny little tuners. I like the body shape, actually, and that green is, what do they call it exactly? Do they give it a name? Jade top. Oh, so only the top is jade. The back is black. What is the side? Black? Yeah, so it's got nice cream binding, the jade color on the top. That is cool. I really actually like that body shape, but no, the headstock kills it for me. It's so dumb. Those are guitar tuners, aren't they? They look like the tuners from my Fender Bass 6 that I had briefly. If you had 6 of them, it would look okay, but 2 on each side, it's weird. Okay, moving on. More Sires, more Yamaha, Danelectro. Again, come on, can't we have something else? An Ibanez acoustic, and that's just too big. Now we're getting down into a more comfortable price range for me. Okay, now we're in Squire territory, and I have to talk about the Rascal. I have looked at the Squire Rascal, so many times and really thought about getting one. They have a few different colors that I like. This Sherwood green with the mint pickguard is probably my favorite. There's a lot that I really like about this. It's a short scale. They sound pretty cool. it's it's the Paranormal series, so they've combined elements of different instruments. It's got the body shape of the bass 6, and I think it's the Coronado headstock shape. So it's slightly different than the normal Fender and Squier headstock in that, this usually comes to a point here, but it's rounded off. The matching headstock looks really cool. I mean, I really do like this, and I've been thinking about a new short scale. So I'm going to add it to the cart. Oh, we're at 6, so I have to get rid of one. Which is it going to be? I'm trying to decide if I should get rid of the Thunderbird. Well, you know what? I've owned a StingRay before, and I own the Joe Dart now, so I'm going to get rid of the short scale StingRay, even though it's cool. I do feel like the Rascal isn't stretching out of my comfort zone quite enough, so it's probably going to be the first to go if I need to eliminate one. Another acoustic, no thanks. This Jackson, oof. I've already talked about Jackson, but I just have to say again, I don't like this body shape. It reminds me of that weird custom bass that Chris Squire had, the green bass that he used in the 80s, that had those black swirling lines that I found out much later actually spelled out CS for Chris Squire. I hated that bass. And this one reminds me of it, even though it's not the same. I actually don't hate this headstock. This might be the first Jackson I've seen where I like the headstock. Do I need to consider this one? Matte Army Drab. What other colors do they have? Deep Purple Metallic. If that's in stock, nope, we can get it. That close. Nope, we're not gonna get that one. Let's move on. I don't consider Sire anyway, and I'm definitely not going to consider their Music Man knockoffs, but I do like that blue. They just call it blue. It's just blue. Blue. Rose gold and blue. Antique white. Well, no. Okay, Epiphone Embassy. Let's just look at that really quickly. Because the Epiphone Newport is one that I've kind of been looking at, even though that's gotten some bad reviews, but that yellow is just pretty sweet, so I might have to consider it just for that. Yeah, no, I mean, this is okay, but it's not good enough. Here's another weird design that I normally would not like. There's something about it that I actually do kind of like. This is another Ibanez. It's got the stupid sound gear. I would maybe, okay, I hate to say this, I would probably get this one to hang on the wall, but I would not play it. But I don't do that, so we're not getting it. Nope, more of those. The red actually is even cooler looking, but no. So we get into these Squires, precision bass, jazz bass. I mean, I actually bought, when they first switched from the vintage modified to the classic vibe, I bought this exact Squire jazz bass as my first Frankenstein bass. So if you go way back in some of my earliest videos, from right in the beginning of COVID, I had a video where I'm playing the Frankenstein bass I made out of this. I took a Fender fretless jazz bass neck and put it on this body because I don't really like Sunburst, and all of their fretless basses seem to only come in Sunburst. Not entirely, but at least with Squire. So I liked this color, the Daphne blue, and I put that Fender neck on it. That was great. But then I bought a set of DiMarzio pickups to put in it. They sounded amazing, but maybe they've changed it now. The pickups that Squire used in the first edition of this were smaller and shallower, and the cavities were only routed out deep enough for those pickups. So I put in the DiMarzios, and even without any kind of foam under them, completely bottomed out against the body, they were so tall that they touched the strings. So I needed to route out the cavities deeper, and I don't have a router. I'm not a woodworker. I do own a drill. So I got the biggest drill bit I could find, and I just drilled trying to make it deeper. It was a complete mess inside, and of course it was not shielded anymore at that point. Squire did send it with shielding paint in the cavities, but that was all gone. So it was not shielded, which didn't matter because they were noiseless pickups. And it actually was fine by the end, but I just knew the horrors that lurked inside, and it kind of ate at me, and so I ended up selling it a few years ago. Probably a mistake, because it was a good bass. There's some videos, like I said, on my channel here, if you go back, where you'll see me playing it. The one thing that was a downside on it was that there was some definite fret sprout on the neck when it first came. Now I bought it in 2019, so I think they've probably improved their production quite a bit since then, and I would recommend this bass if somebody was in the market for a jazz bass in this price range, but that's not what I'm looking for right now. But it's worth looking at. Okay, as long as I was talking about this before, I'll bring it up here. They got the Squire Classic Vibe Telecaster bass. It has the Tele-style headstock. That's cool. I like that. The vintage white, which becomes yellow with time, the old nitrocellulose finish. So this is just yellow, but they call it vintage white, because if you had an actual white bass from the 50s, it would probably look like this now. I love everything about this bass, actually. And I've just been trying to decide if I like the mocha finish or the vintage white better. The problem with getting basses in this price range that have exposed wood grain is that the wood grain isn't always the best on the instruments in this price range. So I would probably go with the vintage white. I do already have 5 basses in the cart. I'm not going to put this in my cart. If I did, I would have to take the Rascal out. Epiphone viola bass, I talked about that in my Ibanez AGB 200 video. I did consider it already, and that's why I'm not going to put it in the list here. EB-3, this is, it looks like the SG, Gibson SG guitar, or the EB-3 bass, I guess. I'm not really that much of an expert on Gibson basses. It's not bad. It's got that dumb headstock, though. So, no. Now, here's a Thunderbird. Do I still have that Thunderbird in the cart? Because here's a Thunderbird that's like way cheaper. Why is it so much cheaper? It is a Sunburst, which I don't like, but the whole thing is darker, so it's really the extreme shift from the kind of amber look of the wood grain section to the black at the edges is what I don't like about a Sunburst. This one, I don't mind as much. I just need to look at the cart and figure out why. Oh, this is a 64, so it's got some kind of upgraded specs. And I see it's got more vintage-looking pickups. It's also $400 more. So if I'm going to consider a Thunderbird, I don't necessarily want to spend $400 extra on it. So I'm going to remove the 64 from the cart, and we'll have the cheaper one in there instead. Okay, so we've got 5. Okay, so I was talking about the Telecaster bass. I need to talk about the Classic Vibe 50s Precision bass too. And I want to talk about what's different about them. So this also has the Tele-style headstock, and it has, the original P-bass look with the single coil pickup and the original P-bass style pickguard. I like the, what do they call it, white blonde, where you can kind of see the wood grain through, even though, like I said before about the cheap wood that they use on these kinds of basses and what the wood grain looks like. I would definitely not consider this over the Telecaster just because of the pickup. Aside from the fact that, yeah, this is something I really hate, is when you can see the wiring of the pickup, like cover that up. But the biggest reason why I would not consider this, the Telecaster has a humbucker. This is single coil, and I'm guessing it's probably going to be pretty noisy. So that is the only reason that I would not consider this bass at all. Now as we're getting into the cheaper, the Ibanez Talman, I'm going to pick this Iced Americano Burst. That is the weirdest wood grain I have ever seen. I almost like it, but the Talman, okay, so it's Ibanez trying to have a more traditional look while still being themselves. The body shape is kind of like a Jaguar shape. It's got the PJ. Of course, it's got the control plate is sort of inspired by a Telecaster. It has a decent looking bridge. I do really like the block inlays and the binding on the neck. I always like that. Aside from the weird body shape, this headstock is just ridiculous. It's kind of a goofy shape, but then the way that it's got the tuners on the top side are close together, and then the ones on the bottom side are really spread out. Why would you do that? It just looks dumb. So no, I'm not considering that. Here's a Gretsch. I haven't talked about Gretsch at all. Gretsch, of course, I think is still owned by Fender. Kind of the retro thing. Actually, I don't mind Gretsch. I don't even mind that headstock, but this is kind of weird. This color, what do they call it? Bristol Fog. Nope. The vintage white is kind of better, but nah, there's too much about it that just I don't like. All right, we're getting near the end here. What is that? Okay, this is Jackson trying to do a Thunderbird, I guess. And I suppose that horn kind of mimics the headstock. Well, first of all, this is the headstock I hate. And it kind of mimics it, but it's more rounded. Feels like, since it's almost even at the same angle, like they really need to just go for it and make it an exact mirroring. Otherwise, it looks wrong. Transparent blue burst. I don't hate that, but I hate a lot of other stuff about it, so no. I am going to talk about the Jackson concert bass. Just wait. Spector is a very well-known brand, considered very high-end, but of course they have gotten on the bandwagon of producing cheaper instruments in Indonesia. I think these are in Indonesia, yeah. Designed in New York, crafted in Indonesia. I do think Spector's headstock is kind of weird looking, but at least the tuners aren't absurdly far apart. I used to think their body design also was weird looking, although now I've realized that it's very compact, and I kind of like that. I would consider this. In fact, I have considered this already. I believe it only comes in active. It only has active mode though. So that would be kind of a problem for me, but you know what? I'm going to add this to the cart. So now I've got 6 and I need to eliminate one. And just for the sake of stepping out of my comfort zone, it has to be the Squire, because I own a bunch of Squires. I have owned Squires. I think they're good. I think these days they're much more consistent than Fender themselves. These Traveler guitars, I get what they're for, but I mean, what the hell is that? It's so weird. If I had a need for something like that for traveling, like I would, I could use it, but no, I don't like it. Jackson with nasty burled top, no thanks. More Sires, more Squire, another ugly looking Jackson, the ugliest looking Talman. That blue starburst is just, I don't like that. Well, okay. I shouldn't say it's the ugliest because there's more to come, but let's just keep going. These are all ones that we've seen some variant of before. So we get into kind of the entry-level Yamaha. These I actually would consider, I mean, this is an entry-level instrument. It looks to me like an entry-level instrument. I think Yamaha makes good quality instruments. If you're starting out and this is like your budget and you want a more modern instrument than the kind of stuff that I usually look at, I would say the TRBX304 is definitely one to consider, but I'm not going to put it in my cart. Oh my God, the Kala. These are the ukulele bass. I actually had a Kala ukulele bass. If you find my Pat Metheny Minuano 6.8 cover, I'm playing the fretless acoustic electric Kala U bass. It's a ukulele bass, so it's an extremely short scale. Does this actually have metal strings? Because the one I had silicone strings. I mean, it's got to have metal strings because it's got a magnetic pickup. The one I had piezo pickup, of course, because it had silicone strings. The selling point was that it supposedly ironically sounds like an acoustic upright. No, it really didn't. It just sounded kind of weird. Like the strings have to be so thick to produce tones in this range at that scale that they just felt really weird, especially being silicone. I mean, the feel of playing it was terrible. And the QC on it was not good. It was a lined fretless, and it had like the fret lines were actually thin strips of wood inlaid, and they were coming out. So I hate these things. No, don't spend your money on them. There's no reason for them to exist. Now we're back to, these are the lowest end Yamaha broad bass. I did actually consider both these and when I had the BB435, I considered the BB235 as well. The difference is there are some specific design changes that Yamaha has in the broad bass series, like the through body at an angle and the 6-point neck attachment. Those are really nice design features of the bass. Those do not exist in the BB200 series, the 234 and the 235. And so it's kind of just, it's a BB in name only. I mean, it's got the body shape, which I don't really like, but the features that actually made the broad bass good, it doesn't have. So it kind of defeats the purpose, even though the price is right. And then one more Kala, just for fun. Okay, we're to the last page. Squire Affinity. My Franken bass, which is the white precision bass I have, it has a Fender Player Jaguar neck on it, but the body is a Squire Affinity. It's this exact one, but in is it Olympic white, I think. So that's the exact one that I bought. I bought it earlier this year for significantly less than what they cost now. That's how things go. It's really good. If you were starting out and again had a budget in the $300 range, that would absolutely be the way that I would recommend going. I think even if you didn't change anything about it, it was really good. Of course, and it's a great platform for modding, which is what I use it for. But I already have one, so it's not for consideration here. The Ibanez Geo, these are their entry-level. It screams entry-level, which it's fine. But, like the Squire doesn't scream entry-level. You can buy an entry-level bass that doesn't look like an entry-level bass. These Gretsch Streamliners, they're cool, but actually, they are cool. Let's look at this walnut satin. Yeah, I like that. It kind of feels like it would maybe be redundant for me now with the Ibanez that I have. If I were looking for something in this price range and I wanted something different from sort of the Fender look, even though, again, I believe Fender does own Gretsch, this would be something I'd go for. I do believe I've seen some videos that talked about QC problems with these, but I think we're at the end of the line here. So I'm going to have to go back. I want to talk about that Jackson concert bass. Okay, the matte army drab, and the black hardware, I don't care for. But this Jackson X Series concert bass, it's just a really weird thing. It's got the precision bass body shape, design elements of a Rickenbacker 4003 or 4001, whichever you prefer. I'm thinking again about the Harley Benton RB414 that I did a bunch of videos about and is sitting in my basement right now. The bridge design, it's Like this, it had a bridge that was intended to evoke the look of the Rickenbacker bridge, but it was a ridiculously terrible design with these little floating barrels that could get lost when you take the strings off. This design, at a glance, has the same sort of shape of the Rickenbacker, but the saddles are much more intelligently designed. It's more of a Fender-style design for that. In fact, it's got the 5 screws. I bet you could swap in a Fender-style bridge. So that's cool. The cover over the pickup, well, I mean, it's, they're trying to make it look like a Rickenbacker. The controls and the shape of the pickguard, trying to look like a Rickenbacker. Of course, it's got a P-bass style split coil pickup here. Then it's got the triangular inlays on the fretboard like a Rickenbacker. All of those, I would kind of be interested in, just as a quirky thing to have, a bass that looks like a cross between a precision bass and a Rickenbacker 4003, especially if the functional parts of it, the bridge and the pickups and all of that, were more Fender style and less Rickenbacker, because as cool as Rickenbackers are, they're kind of a nightmare, I think, to use. But it would be cool to have the visual combination of a precision bass and a Rickenbacker. But the same Jackson headstock, it's so ugly and it just seems so out of place with what they're going for with everything else. I do not understand. Do not understand. So I just had to put that out there. All right, so this is it. Help me decide which of these I should get. Warwick RockBass Corvette $$ electric bass guitar in honey violin transparent satin. Then we have the Sterling by Music Man Bongo electric bass guitar in fire mist purple satin. Then we have the Yamaha TRBX604FM 4-string bass in matte amber. Epiphone Thunderbird E1 bass guitar in vintage sunburst. Spector Performer 4 bass guitar in metallic green. I'll click through each of these, take a closer look at this Warwick. I mean, you call it honey violin. It's like a weird yellow, but cool wood grain. I like that. The bongo is the bongo. It's so bizarre. There's nothing else like it. The purple is cool. I like the purple. We have this Yamaha. Defies many things that I would typically choose, but I do like Yamaha instruments, especially Yamaha keyboards and woodwinds. Not as much their guitars and basses, but I'm trying to convince myself that they're good, so that's one to consider. We have the Epiphone Thunderbird because, I've been kind of an anti-Gibson Epiphone person forever, but the Thunderbird is just such a classic look, and it's weird. I like it. So that's to consider. And then finally, the Spectre. I don't know exactly, I don't think I've heard too much about the quality of these Spectres, the Spector Performer series that's made in Indonesia. I mean, $400 for a Spectre. If it has decent QC and it sounds and plays like a real Spectre, I mean, that is a hell of a deal. So those are the 5 options. I somehow managed to get through this, and I hope you did too. If you did, thanks. What's wrong with you? What's wrong with either of us? Let me know down in the comments what you think, and hopefully we'll have a poll set up that you'll be able to vote for your favorite bass here, and I'll collect some votes over some time. I'm not sure how long I'll let it go. It depends on what kind of response this gets. And then hopefully sometime in 2026, sooner than later, I will have one of these 5 basses to review. Thanks for watching.